This is the Dzogchen Sunday Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For multiple decades, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. It is Rey Skywalker early Sunday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. I recommend against actively focusing and analyzing. However, the majority of meditation teachers advocate for that. Why is that? The reason comes down to the difference between proto-Buddhism versus institutional Buddhism. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun, tingly way. That suckiness could look like Yang's religious patriarchy that conditions people to habitually indulge their rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel tendencies. The remaining 10% are typically proponents of Yin's spiritual matriarchy that conditions people to habitually indulge their flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind tendencies. You see, the more we actively focus and analyze, the more we so exhaust our medial and dorsolateral prefrontal cortices that it triggers our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression. Therefore, I recommend meditating in harmony with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems in such a way that it not only calms the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala, but gently stimulates our anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, and the root of love and compassion. Therefore, instead of actively focusing and analyzing our chest or our breathing, let us treat them the way a piano student. Let us emulate the example of an enthusiastic piano student who is so enamored with his score and his keyboard that he merely holds the sound of his metronome in passive peripheral awareness. Bearing that in mind, as we passively notice our chest swell with breath, let us silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. And as we passively notice our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale, let us silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, like Diana Ross easing down the road in the cinematic production of The Wiz. But how does this relate to our autonomic nervous system? Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which functions as the core of our sympathetic nervous system, that has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. All of them. From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the convenient to the arduous, from the glorious to the grotesque. But what are we to do with all this stuff? Simple. Every time what are we to do with all this stuff that our mindfulness has noticed? We meditate. But how do we do that? Every time we exhale, we have evolved to automatically access both the tippy top as well as the very bottom of that same spinal cord. These two regions, working as a team, function as the core of our parasympathetic nervous system that has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release during our exhalation to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and as non-graspable as a vast empty void. It would seem that a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. Therefore, we have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although it could be tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand? And so we see, whether we're discussing no self or emptiness, those are both just figures of speech to describe the phenomena latent within each exhalation, which, although profound, are quite fleeting. Well, if no self and emptiness are fleeting, then what's the point of meditation? What if enlightenment was nothing more than mastery of the Buddha's Eightfold Path? What do we mean by mastery? As we children, we mastered the skills. Let me jump back. Any skill, once we've mastered a skill, we tend to practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. As we children, we mastered the skills of using the commode instead of our diapers, brushing our teeth, tying our shoes, riding a bike, no less reading, writing, and arithmetic. What is the most efficient way for us to master this Eightfold Path? Consider the seventh and eighth folds of mindfulness and meditation. Simply by sitting and breathing and noticing and relaxing about once every 12 hours or so, we cannot help but viscerally experience impermanence and no self and emptiness. The more we sit and breathe and notice and relax, the more we can't help but practice kind intention, kind communication, kind conduct, and kind commerce. It's all very well and good to have a kind intention, but how are we to know what the right thing is to do, no less when to do it? Simple. The more we sit and breathe and notice and relax, the more our choices and utterances and deeds flow, not from contrived calculation, nor from wild scatteredness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. This is the key to using all the regions of our central nervous system in the most effective way. This method is known by many names, such as right effort, or effortless effort, or doing without doing, or wu wei, or going with the flow, or being in the zone, or expedient means, or simply tathagata garbha, or Buddha nature. Now bear in mind, someone who is enlightened is simply mastered the use of the Buddha's tool chest. They still experience the full spectrum of human perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. The only difference is like Pinocchio. They have no strings to tie them down, to make them laugh or make them frown. And instead of being governed habitually governed by their survival instincts in a way that is entirely unsustainable, they're able to flow from a place of deeply centered love. Perhaps that is why the Buddha explained in the penultimate passage of the Satipatthana Sutta that one could master this path in as little as 7 days. The moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques that support meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. For I tend to check for questions about once every 13 minutes or so. Let us get our terminology correct and assume that a round consists of one inhalation, wherein we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, as well as one exhalation, where we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease. To keep track of our first bonus round, which sounds like a game show, doesn't it? Let us touch the tip. Let us use the tip of our left middle finger to support the lower knuckle of our right middle finger, palms up in our lap. To keep track of an additional 12 rounds, let us turn our attention to the right hand. And every time we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during an inhalation, let us advance our right thumb across the sets of creases, beginning at the base of our right little finger and concluding with the set of creases, the higher set of creases on our right index finger. Let us practice together right now. our bonus round and our set of 12 rounds together take a little bit more than 1 minute to practice. Therefore, to meditate for an additional 13 minutes, it could be useful to keep track of 12 more bonus rounds, as well as 12 more sets of 12 rounds each. To do that, it's simple. We turn our attention to our left hand, touch the tip of our left thumb to our left little finger's lower set of creases. We then return our attention to our right hand. Well, actually, so before we do that, so having touched the lower set of creases, our left little finger, we practice the bonus round. And then continue with our set of 12 rounds. To continue, we simply advance our left thumb to the next set of creases. And now that you get the idea of how this works, let us rest our hands palms up in our lap. Let us return to the concept of mastering the Buddha's Eightfold Path. One who is enlightened has not lost the ability to experience certain emotions or intentions. Au contraire, they are subject to the full spectrum of human perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. The difference between someone who is enlightened and not enlightened is simply the mastery of the Buddha's tool chest, wherewith they cope with the slings and arrows of outrageous experience. The specter of karma is the hobgoblin used by patriarchy in an effort to coerce people to practice what they view as morality. But what patriarchy fails to understand is that simply by sitting and breathing and noticing and relaxing approximately once every 12 hours, we cannot help but practice kindness of intent, kindness, mental kindness, interpersonal kindness, physical kindness, and circumstantial kindness, the essence of morality. Therefore, there is no need for vows. There is no need for rule keeping. Simply live a lifestyle wherein our deeply centered love guides our choices and our utterances and our deeds. To keep track of our next collection of 13 sets of 13 inhalations, let us slide the tip of our left middle finger along the back of our right middle finger until it comes to the second knuckle. Now, the moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques that support meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I check for questions approximately every 13 minutes or so. to begin to keep track of at least the first half of our third collection of 13 sets of 13 rounds. Let us slide the tip of our left middle finger up the back of our right middle finger until we come to the third knuckle. Let's rest our hands, let's return our hands palms up to our lap. Having sat for the better part of an hour, we might find it refreshing to knock out 8 senior citizen squat thrusts. If you'd like to join me, I'll take a moment to swing my laptop around. Okay. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk practice of Meditate Like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.